Hello and welcome to the next episode of Why We Do It, the stories behind the stories in amateur sports. And tonight we have a very special guest for all sorts of reasons. One of them being that this is the first time since we started this series of podcasts that we are talking to someone who is not a triathlete. Daithi from Ireland and also from 2 streets down the road from me, but we didn't meet up because it was easier to do it online. How are you?
I'm very good, Jim. All the better now for seeing you.
Indeed. And let's start the way we should in proper Irish tradition and just raise our Guinnesses to say hello.
Sláinte.
Solange, we're not sponsored by Guinness on this podcast. We flipping should be on this particular episode because, and actually you should be, given that it's your 60th birthday week or month, let's call it. It's been a long kind of couple of weeks. And you were telling me that you didn't really fancy another Guinness tonight. Why is that, Dahi?
I've had quite a few. I last count, it was well over 50 since I started. And there's another week. There's another week to go yet.
Not started in your whole life, started this month in your birthday celebrations. And happy birthday for your 60th.
Since I went home to see my brothers.
Right, okay.
That's always dangerous.
Good, excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's great to have you on. You and I have actually done a podcast before, 2 years ago. It was a one-off. I didn't do another podcast after that for quite a while. It was nothing to do with you, I've got to say. It's actually on another platform. And it's kind of linked to what we're talking about tonight because it was after one of the most extraordinary cycling things you ever did. And we talked specifically about that event. I'll put a link in the description on YouTube that goes with this recording so people can go and listen to that if they want. And I would recommend you do because it was a good laugh for a start. And also what an unbelievable thing you did. But we'll come back to that in a little bit. But Dahi, we're talking about sport in general, amateur sports, everything that goes on with why we do it and what motivates us and what keeps us going through different things. You're not a triathlete, which is great. You're a cyclist now, but you've done a bunch of different things. I'm going to open, though, with something that you put in the little note that you sent me in advance where you said, I know my children think I'm a bit mad, brackets, well, maybe a lot. But if I give them nothing else, I hope I give them a desire to give. We'll talk about the second part of that in a bit. But let's talk about your children thinking you're a bit mad. How do you explain that to us and to those of people that don't know you?
Well, Denise told me I'm not allowed to swear on the chat.
Yeah,
she said nobody swears on the podcast. But unfortunately, that's tough. So when my kids have got very well used to me coming home, fucking this and fucking that and fucking the next thing, that definitely starts a little bit of the madness. They've also been used to me being away off all over the place, doing huge cycles and daft things. So, they were quite happy that I wasn't anywhere near them most of their lives. And it was, in fact, their mother that picked them up at the school and dropped them to school to keep their daft dad away. So you'd have to really ask them why they think I'm mad, but they surely
No,
know.
I don't have to ask them. I've known you for many, many years, and I completely agree with them, to be fair. And I understand what they're saying. And maybe by the end of this, then some of the folks who've watched this will also understand. But let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to Ireland. Let's go back and start with your childhood in sport, what you were up to, how things kind of rolled for you in the first few years from a sporting point of view.
So I started out really unlucky. I had a big brother who treated me like I was 2 years old, and in fact continues to treat me like I'm 2 years old, even though I've got to 60. And he became a West Ham supporter after West Ham won the FA Cup in 1965. So West Ham were forced on me. And
Okay.
so I became a West Ham supporter. But like every other child in rural Ireland, I played Gaelic football. And like most of the sports I've ever done, I was useless at it. So they put me in goal. And if you've ever played football in Ireland in the winter, the goalkeeper stood in about 2 inches of water the whole way through the game. But I became not too bad as a goalkeeper and fancied myself, as I told you in my chat, as a budding Phil Parks. Unfortunately, I wasn't really ever going to be that. I played a bit of soccer and enjoyed it and played in goal in that. And then I started running like Forrest.
So can I just ask quickly, a Gaelic football goalkeeper, I haven't had a chance to look it up.
Yeah.
Is being a goalkeeper in Gaelic football the same as being a goalkeeper in soccer or football?
It
Or are
is.
there different rules that you have to do different things as a goalkeeper?
Well, as a goalkeeper in Gaelic football, it's just harder because there are no rules to protect the goalkeeper. So you're as likely to get beaten up as anybody else out the pitch. And I regularly did. But because I was relatively small and slight, I had teammates who'd fight through hell for me. So I remember one time actually playing football when I came out and I was so unfit, I completely missed the ball as I was about to punch it. I had an open fist and I punched the forward straight in the side of the head, right? He went down like a sack of potatoes. And I'm like this with my hand, and his entire team came charging at me. To which my team came and defended me, and I never got touched. And that guy actually got taken away. So bad timing is
So
something
that was a
that's really,
soccer match, not a Gaelic football match.
that was a soccer match, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're much more protected in soccer than you are in Gaelic football. There's
Yeah.
15 players on a Gaelic football team.
And there's a good link there in that kind of wildness that you describe in Gaelic football to you coming up against David O'Malley,
Ah, yes, David O'Malley.
who
I
I've never
had
heard of
this,
before, but I'm saying pretending like I
I,
do.
I had this notion of being an outfield player, with a silky touch like Maradona. So in Gaelic football, I decided I'd play at centre half forward, which is, that's the cool place for all Gaelic footballers. And I went running out one day, going for the ball, and ran straight into David O'Malley. Now, David O'Malley was a horse of a man, as strong as an ox, a farmer from back the west, as we used to call them. And he stood still, and I collapsed in a heap. And so started all my left knee cartilage problems, from which I've suffered ever since. That was the end of my Gaelic football career, never mind my outfield Gaelic football career. It also eventually put paid to my running. But I don't blame David O'Malley. I blame my own stupidity, something
for
that has
running
stood
for
me in
running
great stead for my entire life.
for running straight into him. So you were
Yeah,
also doing running though at the same time, or then
I
and a bit
was.
afterwards, despite this injury. Although you said it caught up with you eventually, but you were able to keep running.
I did. I did a lot of running then. I used to run in the morning before school. I'd run in the evening after school. There was a lot of times I was running 7 days a week, but there was no club anywhere near me. So I was just running because I loved it. And I'm sure you know this because you're a far better runner than me. But that feeling when you're really fit and you're floating across the ground, you don't even feel like you're running. I used to be like that many, many, many years ago, and I really did love it until my knees started to hurt me. But if we're really honest, it was nothing to do with my knee. I went off to university and discovered Arthur Guinness. And that's really what put paid to my running life.
To our episode sponsors again. You were telling me the other night at your birthday drinks that you're some kind of connoisseur. You're a Guinness expert. And
I
when you
prefer
go
to
around
call
different
myself,
pubs in Ireland, you criticize them all.
that's right, I prefer to call myself a Guinness snob.
Okay.
If coffee snobbery is good enough for Alan Jackson, Guinness snobbery is good enough for me.
Okay. Well, if we ever need to get the Guinness expert on, you're definitely going to be back on for another episode. But there was something in your notes about running as a I guess as a youngster, let's call it, because you didn't put an age in. You
Yeah,
talked about running 40 laps of the pitch in the morning and 10
yeah.
interspersed with 10K or 10 miles most evenings. For a start, how old are you? Just to understand.
I was in my late teens, early 20s.
And what on earth was driving you to do that? If there was no club, what got you out every morning running around the pitch and then running in the evening as well?
I don't know why I started, but um, people say that sport or athletics, particularly, is like a drug. And when you do enough of it, you actually get withdrawal symptoms if you don't do it. So I couldn't survive. The other thing is, I'd go to school fresh in the morning. I maybe didn't smell fresh because in those days you had a bath once a week, whether you needed it or not, and there were no showers. But you went to school, your mind was completely open. I was wide awake when people were half asleep in the class. And in the evening, so leaving cert, which is your final exams in school in Ireland, is tough. It's still very tough for the kids. It's a real head wrecker and mental stress for kids, especially now. But there was a lot of work to do in the evenings. So going for a run before you'd start doing the studying really opened up your head for studying as well in the evening. So I probably did it because, or I did it because I enjoyed it, but there was just that feeling of near enough ecstasy when you'd have a good run.
Mhm. There's a lovely link to your childhood in Ireland and what you described, and also an early episode on our series with Myra Robb. I think it's episode 5 off the top of my head. She grew up in Ireland, and she talks about similar kinds of that lack of school sport, lack of facilities, but still just being very active and enjoying the outdoor and being free.
Yeah.
And sounds very similar.
Yeah, yeah. She's Myra's a great lady altogether. But when you were in rural Ireland those days, all there was a Gaelic football pitch. If you were lucky, there was a soccer pitch. And because they were usually created on farmland, they were pretty bumpy and pretty wet and no drainage. So that's the facilities you had, and you made the most of them, and you enjoyed them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so according to your notes, between running around the pitch at school, and then it looks like Guinness and uni and work dominated quite a big middle section, because we then
Yeah,
just jump to cycling,
yeah,
and you're taking up cycling because you gave up on running, and here you are looking the business a few years ago,
yeah.
and so what was that? Talk us through that jump very quickly from those days to giving up running and taking up cycling.
So I got very busy, Jim. When I went to uni, I got a scholarship from Coopers and Lybrand, which is currently PwC, which meant I ended up working for them. And all of a sudden, you're just busy with life. And okay, I was out every night of the week drinking as well as working, but there was really no space for sport then. And then I met Denise in 1988, and that was a whole other distraction. There was no time for anything then.
She's quite a runner now, by the way. So yeah,
She is an
yeah,
excellent runner.
she might blame you for being the distraction, but never mind.
No, she was definitely a distraction. You take one look at me, you take a look at Denise, you realize which one of us is the distraction. Anyway,
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll
we,
come back
we,
to that
we,
another time.
we moved here and I worked at the bank, and there was a guy I used to work with, and he went cycling with me one day. Somebody had given me a bike, and he had one of these one-speed bikes, and he cycled home with me up Ravelrig Road. He's about 5 years older than me. He came up Ravelrig Road, hardly the breath coming out of him.
Which, given that we have a massive international listening group of many millions of people, you have to explain what Ravelry Road looks like. We're not just
Ra- ra-
on
ra-
this.
Ravelrig Road is a kilometre from the bottom to the top, and the last probably 400 metres of it gets up to about 8 or 9 or 10%. It's a pain in the backside. And I'm coming up on my whatever speed bike it was, barely fit to keep up with him, busting a gut and blowing out everywhere. And I decided I can't have this. I can't have Mark Beaumont being better than me on a one-speed bike. So roundabout
Not
then,
we had this on the last podcast, not the Mark Beaumont.
No, not the Mark Beaumont. A
It's quite
different Mark
confusing.
Beaumont.
You threw me
Yes.
off on that 2 years ago. You nearly did it again.
No. This is the Mark Beaumont that worked with. He lives in Killin actually now, which is where Denise's race finishes the week after next. Um, so he was good, and he basically got me going. And I started cycling with the guys here in Balerno, and I thought I was brilliant when I was able to cycle 30 kilometers. I was a really world-class cyclist because I could do 30 kilometers. And then I realized that actually there was a lot more than 30 kilometers to be done. So I just got out cycling on Sundays, mostly liked it because it wasn't hurting my knee as running was, and even walking at that stage. You could have a laugh. You didn't have to work all the time. You really only had to work when you were going up hills, or as is the case with the Feeds Club, on the way back. At the end of
On the
every
way
cycle,
back.
they just take off like bats out of hell.
Another local reference there, which we don't have time to explore further. But
Yeah,
I know what you mean. I mean,
yeah,
because we live so locally, we know each other. I feel I should take credit for ending your running career, because I
yes,
think the last time you ran was when you were trying to convince me that we should effectively come out of amateur sport retirement and try and do the Comrades Marathon in South Africa. In 2016 was the first time, and in 2015 you and I started running together, and you stopped quite quickly, and then I stopped, and I think that was the last time you ran.
yes. It was that I had to stop someplace here in the village and walk home because my knee had blown up like a balloon, and I couldn't run anymore. That was the end of that. Yeah, that's a long
But
time ago.
you didn't stop me altogether, because you did me a massive favor. in that
Yes.
my good wife Rona was at a party that I was not at. You were
Yeah.
there. You
Yeah.
said to her, "Is Jim going to do comrades next year?" And she said, "I'm not sure. He's kind of struggling with motivation or something like that." And you said, "I don't think he will." And Rona came back and told me that, and I was out the door about 2 minutes later, and I never looked back. I ran the next year and for many years afterwards. So I got you to
Yeah.
thank for being the spark of motivation, just by being frankly quite annoying.
And that's part of my middle name. They should really have called me Daithi Annoying Heneghan.
That's very true. Okay,
Yes.
let's get to the crunch here. So
Yeah.
you're into cycling, and things actually start to get quite serious.
Yeah.
Um, so talk about your motivations for the cycling you do. There's a few particular events we're going to talk about, but I think the very first part of this is about the main motivation behind nearly all of your cycling now.
So, I mean, it is a little bit like running, Jim. I just love stretching myself. I love taking myself as far as I can, which will never be particularly fast, but I seem to be able to cycle all day long, and it's a brilliant way to see the world, to see every place, and I just like to see how far can I keep going, and so that's kind of been
You
something that's
describe yourself as the Forrest Gump of cycling.
well, I could be the Forrest Gump of
I
running
think you
or
could,
cycling.
and I mean that
Um,
in all genuine seriousness and respect. You probably could,
yeah,
as people are about to hear.
yeah, so not long after my dad died, I went to Malawi with the school from Glasgow, which was horrendously emotional. You've heard me tell this story anyway, so it was a tough time, and I had a brilliant bunch of kids with me. I was the only non-teacher there. There was 36 kids, 8 teachers, and me. And they asked me to do the reflection on the last night. That little boy that sits beside me there, his name is Hope, and Hope had cystic fibrosis. And he smiled all the time. All the kids in Malawi smiled. They call it the warm heart of Africa. One of the kids asked me if I would take them home with them to Scotland in my suitcase. I said, "Won't your mother be upset?" "No, she has loads of other children." So when I came back, my father dying and seeing how these folks live with absolutely nothing, I just decided I need to do something for these guys. I have to go back a bit, Jim. My parents we weren't rich, we weren't poor, but my dad brought six of us up on his teacher's income, which wasn't a lot. And still he gave money to people who had less than us, and still he raised money for charity. And one way or another, that rubbed off on me. So I came back and I decided I was going to cycle the Wild Atlantic Way because I was a brilliant cyclist. I mean, I was able to cycle 30 kilometers, no problem at all. Wild Atlantic Way is 2,100 kilometers of some of the most stunning scenery you'll see anywhere in the world. And I'm biased, of course. And so I decided I would go with a little bag on the back of my bike carrying kit for the evening and a toothbrush and toothpaste. And that's it for 15 days. And I cycled the west coast of Ireland, and I called my cycle Hope on the Wild Atlantic Way after Hope in Malawi. And we raised 12,000 quid on that trip, split between Mary's Meals and Cancer Research. And people all along the way were absolutely magnificent. One guy stopped beside me at Roadworks in County Clare. I had a puncture. He got out and fixed the puncture and handed me €50 for the charity. It was brilliant. Every day at lunchtime, I stopped in a pub. I had chowder, brown bread, and 2 pints of Guinness, and then cycled on for the afternoon. And I had a chat going as my way, and I had a competition going. Who would have the best chowder every day when I stopped? And this became a competition all the way along the ride, which helped bring in a load of money. So by the time I reached Derry at the end, there was some charity people up there waited for me in the Guildhall with a £2,000 check on the last day I arrived in Derry. It was fantastic. It was brilliant. It was a great, great
So to go
bike
back to
ride.
the start of this, and
Yeah,
to for those people who don't know you, who are watching this or listen to this, we were talking about David being that he is also known as David here locally.
yeah,
So interchangeable name. He we talked about him being mad basically, and what you've just heard right there is just how mad he is. But what you also heard is just how effective that madness can be. So there you go. That's how it all comes together.
Yeah. Well, it was a brilliant 15 days. Finished off as almost everything I ever do is with a scatter of pints in Derry.
Cheers. Oh, there's the
Cheers.
camera. Yeah, there we are.
Yeah,
I'm on a small camera now.
yeah. So that was a
Good.
good event. Yeah.
So 2,100 kilometers in 15 days. What kind of distances what was that working out as? Did you have long days, short days?
At most, it was 150 kilometers, but to me, that felt like
Which is nearly
forever.
100 miles.
Not far off it, but when you've nothing else, Jim, to do all day, when you don't have to cook your breakfast, when you don't have to go to work, when you don't have to worry about money, 150 kilometers is actually quite easy. Most people think I'm not talking seriously, but I am. It's the issue is getting up and doing it every day. That's what's a little bit harder, but it was
And
such a
as we're
brilliant
about to hear,
experience.
that was a bit of a warm-up act, but it was also the first time you did that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And what were the big lessons you learned from that you took into some of your later events?
Well, I guess the first thing was I learned a lot about me. Um, I, 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 I doubt myself all the time, and I doubted I could do it. I knew and still know very little about bike mechanics. So how the hell I managed to get from one end of the country to the other with the limited bike mechanics that I have is somehow impossible.
And it's
But
worth mentioning that this Wild Atlantic Way, the Hope Ride that you did, this
yeah,
was your own thing. You just made this up.
I
It
did.
wasn't
Yeah,
an organized event. No one else was doing it. You
no.
were out there completely on your own.
All day, every day on my own. Yeah, my brother followed me in a car for the first 5 days, mostly because he quite enjoyed having the pints with me at lunchtime and in the evening. But I was on my own pretty much most of the time. Yeah, but I was really lucky that year as well. The weather was great, except for a couple of days in Donegal. It was just a huge experience. But I guess I learned I was mentally stronger than I thought I was. Um, I guess I found I was way more emotional than I ever thought I was. I passed through a place on my way home where I had visited with my mother a few weeks before she died. Sorry, Jim. So that was quite an emotional stop that particular day. Anyway, it was lovely. It was a nice thing to do to kind of remember both of my parents. She died shortly before I did that. So
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
You care a lot, David. It's clear in everything that you do. You don't do anything by halves. I was
I
I was
try
actually
not to.
about to crack a joke about some of that, and now I can't because you've got all emotional on me.
No, it's better if you do, Jim. It's better if you do. It'll make the whole thing easier. Yes.
Well, I was about to say before you got that very poignant bit that whilst
Yeah.
you were doing that, you also set a tracker running, a kind of message tracker. I think it was WhatsApp or something like that. It was a group of us who were following you, and
Yeah.
boy, were you moaning. You were just complaining and moaning the whole time, and I just had to get on there and give you a really serious telling off, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you did. But Jim, what I've subsequently found out is
Oh, here
moaning
you go.
is the very best way to raise money.
Mm.
If I'd actually be going along saying, "Oh, it's wonderful, the scenery is great, the weather's wonderful, the cycling is beautiful," do you think anybody would have bothered stopping to give me a penny? Every time I told them, "Geez, this is cruel. This is really hard. I'm barely fit to turn the pedals. It's pissing down with rain. It's a disaster." The money flowed in.
So you thought that guy who gave you was a 50 or €100 note on the road. You thought that he felt kind of moved and sorry for you. He just wanted to get rid of you. That's why he was like, "Here's your €50. Please get out of here." Yeah.
Probably, Jim, probably.
Probably.
But it's been a very effective for me ever since. So I continue to use the moaning tactic.
Yeah. And I mean, the important thing is that we've got into that because the Malawi trip and the charity activities that you've been doing, that you've been linked to, that is your motivation. For some of us,
Yeah.
it's the competition. For other people, it's different things. But for you, it's that to get the drive, to get the motivation, to keep yourself going. It's the feeling of that you create on purpose. Is this feeling of not letting your donors or not letting the people who are going to be benefiting from the funds raised. That's what gives you the drive, isn't it?
Yeah, so I listened to a guy. I'm doing a bit of work at the minute. I listened to a guy who's the chief executive of the company talking about being the best or being average. And what he said is, who wants to be average? And I have a real problem with that. And the reason I have a real problem with that is the vast majority of us, or if we're lucky, are average. And I'll never be any better than average at most of what I do. So the only thing I can try to be best at is doing stuff for other people. And that really drives me on. So I would like to think that I'm not too bad at fundraising, even though I'm pretty much average at almost everything else I do.
Yeah, I normally have a yellow card for people to talk themselves down too much. I didn't think I
Yeah.
would need it here, but I'm going to have to go and find it in a minute if you carry on like that. Um, so after the Wild Atlantic Way, the next big event was that Land's End, or was there anything else in between? That was the next significant thing you
Land's
did.
End to John O'Groats was an absolutely superb event, organised by my good friend John Grindley, who's on the left in the picture. And if anybody who knows John, he organises things to the complete nth degree, the complete opposite to me. So we had everything organised. And this one, we were fully supported by John's mother and father. So we just cycled probably 200 kilometres a day. We did the 1,500 kilometres from Land's End to John O'Groats in 7 days. It was superb. The night we got to John O'Groats, there was another group that arrived there, and John got up and got chatting to them, and he said to them, "How long did it take you to do it?" And they said, 10 days. And he went, "Oh, smoke, John. Oh, well, it only took us 7," and walked away off to the toilet. It's absolutely brilliant. So that's John, Andy, and
Which
me.
is
And that
unusual for
was,
him. He's not normally that kind of direct and blunt.
no, not at all. But the three people in that picture are as good of friends as you'll ever find anywhere now. That 7 days was proper friendship, proper support, just lovely. And it was for charity as well, but it felt like an awful lot more than any of the other rides I've ever done because we got to know each other really, really well over those 7 days. Yeah.
Good. And some other things were going on. I remember hearing you talking about hand issues starting to come into play from that much cycling for that long, and I guess that's something you've had to be careful with
Yeah.
on the types of events you do generally. But just talk us through what can happen to your hands when you're cycling kind of that
Yeah.
much every day.
So it had never happened to me before last year, and the one I did last year. So, but it
So it
was
wasn't you on the Land's End, was it someone else who had
no, it was
that problem?
John. It was John.
Right.
He completely lost the power in his left hand. So he was changing gears. He was changing the left shifter with his right hand, which is not exactly ideal. But
No.
what happens is you're putting so much pressure on. I don't know, but is it called the carpal tunnel? There's a nerve that runs all the
Yeah,
way down
I
from the
think so.
back of your neck, all the way down through. I can't remember the nerve is called, but you basically nick the nerve and it gets shortened. And it basically causes your little finger and half of the finger beside it to go completely numb. And you use those fingers to change the shifters. So I couldn't do it. I could pull the brakes, but I couldn't push the shifters. John couldn't for probably 4 of the 7 days. It was last year when that happened to me. It's horrible when it happens, right? Because you're not in control. And the very least you need when you're cycling 200 plus kilometers a day is you need to be able to use both your hands.
Yeah, indeed.
People
It's a bit
think
like
it's your legs.
using jackhammers. It's
People think it's your legs you cycle with, but you cycle with your hands as well. So
yeah.
it's very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of keeps you alive and being able to use your hands on a bicycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bit like halves, isn't it? The hand vibration syndrome or carpal tunnel syndrome that you mentioned is the same kind of thing. Just for,
Yeah.
it's either the pressure but also the vibration for
Yeah.
that sustained amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so then things get really crazy. So let's get into the North Cape 4000, which was the subject of the time we spoke before. That was after the event, but people listening to this probably don't know what that is. Tell us where you started, how long it was, how many countries you went through. Give us a very quick overview of the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Real quick, it starts in Italy. The year we did it, it started in Turin, and it finishes at what's called the Nordkap at the top of Norway. So you go right up into the Arctic Circle. We went through 10 countries. I think 350 people entered, 280 people started, and I was the fourth last of the 242 who finished. 15 days it took me, 25 days it took me. And I finished on my father's birthday on the 15th of August. It was particularly nice. It was a fantastic cycle. I went to places I had never been. Um, uh, I did the cycle for Coco, which is a charity that you know very well. Another one that looks after kids in Africa, East Africa, Kenya in particular. And I had a target of, I think it was 10 grand. In the end, 15,000 was raised. And about, I don't know, was it 700 or 800 or 1,000 kilometers from the end, somebody texted me to say, you've passed your £10,000. That was absolutely brilliant. And the only worry I had was, shit, now that that target is finished, will I have any motivation to keep going? But then it becomes, the event is for me and I want to finish this. When people asked me why did I do it, I told a story about some people see things and wonder why. I dream of things that never were and wonder why not. So the reason I do things is, why not? It's a challenge and you might as well do it.
Yeah,
So,
why not? I mean, that's fairly kind of sensible, and good logic until it's how many kilometers and 25 days overall?
it was 4,500 kilometers. The
Four and
longest
a
day
half
was,
thousand.
yeah, the longest day was 150 miles.
So you cycled for 25 days non-stop,
Yeah,
knocking on kind of 100 miles as a short day, up to
yeah,
150 miles on a daily basis.
yeah.
Here's a picture of you. I don't know what stage this is at. It's probably about halfway through. With
No, that was quite early. That was coming out of Lausanne. That was on the third day, and it was pretty wet,
on the
heading
third
to
day, right?
France. Yeah,
Right.
so that's
I
me
mean, it
with
doesn't
a
start. It doesn't start off kind of particularly easily either, because on the first day, you have the biggest climb of the whole thing. You had a concern that you weren't even going to get up the first hill
no, that was 30 kilometers up the St. Bernard Pass, got over
on day
2,000
one.
meters. Yeah. And the bike, if you look at it, the bike was 8.5 kilos or 9 kilos, but with all the kit on it, it was another 7 or 8 kilos on top of that. So the bike in total is 15, 16, 17 kilos that you're carrying up. That's actually just after Lausanne. It was lovely weather. Actually, one of the hardest things about that first day was it was 37 degrees in Turin.
Jeez.
There was a day in Sweden where it was 8 degrees and pouring with rain, and it felt really cold. So we had all the extremes
But
right
that
across.
wasn't the only hard thing about the first day. A
No,
story that you didn't tell anyone for days after it happened is that
yes,
on the very first morning, on the first day that you're about to start, you cycle from your hotel to the start line, and
yeah.
what happened?
Well, there's trams in Turin, and if anybody who knows me knows I hate tram lines and I hate train lines. And I was cycling outside the tram line because I was scared of my shit, right? But the taxis and all the cars were passing me on the right. Oh, shit, I can't be doing this. So I decided I had to move into the tram, except I took the wrong angle. My front wheel went straight into the tram line and I collapsed. I tore all my right leg. I smacked my shifters. I twisted my derailleur, bomb bursting with adrenaline. This woman came along, I know who she was, but she had alcohol cleaning products. She cleaned up all my cuts. I managed to twist the shifters back into place and prayed that the derailleur, which by the way I didn't even know what a derailleur was at the time, was okay. And I cycled to the start, and the adrenaline took me 210 kilometers that day, including the St. Bernard Pass. It was a disaster start, but there you go.
25 days ahead,
Yeah,
4,100 kilometers to go, and you've
yeah,
already come off your bike. You haven't even
yeah,
started, and
yeah.
you're not even sure if now it's going to work. And you didn't want to tell anyone because you didn't even tell anyone at the start line, did you? You just got down there
No,
and got on with it.
no, they just thought, who's this weird guy with all these cuts down his leg? I really didn't want to tell Denise because she was really so worried about me doing the thing, as you can imagine. So I didn't want her thinking that there was anything bad had happened. So I wasn't going to broadcast it over the chat.
But again, this is stories behind the stories, and I think the other thing that I remember you talking about a lot, because we were following you on a chat, was the camaraderie. And those two
Yeah,
pictures that we showed, in this one in particular,
yeah,
you struck up friendships and you struck up a bromance with Michael, who's cycling there behind you.
yes.
So much so that those of us who were just watching the chat on the online were thinking this was like a long lost kind of brother or cousin that you'd come across. But you two became very close on this, didn't you?
Yeah, and Michael's about 5 months older than me. He's exactly the same build. He's exactly the same weight. He's got a very un-German sense of humor. He's hilarious and takes a great slagging, which it goes down in the Irish books really well. No, he's a great guy. I've
Which
been to
anyone
see
who
him
knows
since.
you needs to be able to do. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, he came to visit us, and we've been to visit him, or I've been to visit him. He's a good guy, so he will be part of my next adventure as well. So
Yeah,
the
we'll
guy
get to that in a
behind him,
second. Yeah,
yeah, the
go on.
guy behind him is an Australian guy who also got friendly with, and he was part of the event I did last year. So
But
pretty good.
this group of, I think it was three or four or five of you
Yeah,
initially, it
yeah,
split up because of circumstances where, again, you put other people before yourself. Michael got very ill in
he
Oslo,
did. Yeah, yeah.
and
So we,
the team split up. But you coordinated that and you stayed. So talk us through that again.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like it wasn't. It was only him that had problems. I mean, I helped people up with my problems on my bike, but Michael got sick.
I'm talking about health.
Um,
Yeah,
Michael got sick in Denmark. We'd been cycling a lot through agricultural land in Germany and Denmark. And anybody who knows agriculture knows that slurry gets spread in the summertime. And slurry's pretty bad when it gets into the top of your bottle. As Denise always says, I've got a stomach like a concrete mixer, probably because I was brought up in a world where slurry was every day. But two of the guys with me, Mark from Australia and Michael, must have got bugs from the slurry in their bottles. Like when you're doing this stuff every day, your hygiene is it's a bit right. You're as long as your shorts are well washed, that's all you're really worried about. But we probably weren't washing our bottles as well as we should. So he had 3 days of sickness where he could barely eat. And on the first day in Norway,
he's
when we
still
got to
cycling
go,
with you, doing 100 plus miles, 130
yeah,
miles a day.
yeah. So the first
Incredible.
day, in Norway in Oslo, he barely could go 50 kilometers. So we stopped at a hotel at the airport, 50 kilometers on, while the others continued on. I had hoped to finish the whole thing in 21 days, not 25. But you can't just leave somebody that's half dead on the side of the road and just say bye. So I stayed with Michael and forced him the next 2 days to go over 200 kilometers a day, despite how he was feeling.
Some people would have done.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think most people would have stayed.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's you definitely would have always done what you did. So credit
Yeah,
to you for that. And yeah, I guess none of us are mad enough to put ourselves in that circumstance where we're 15 plus days into a cycle
yeah,
and someone that we've been cycling with for nearly all of that distance is now in trouble. So yeah, maybe
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
You talked about a hotel, and that was a posh hotel you stayed at because Michael was quite sick. But you stayed in some pretty grim places. Apart from the hotels, you found some quite ingenious ways of putting shelter over your heads a few times.
Yeah, so there was one day in Sweden. We'd been told about this long in advance, but as usual, we ignored all the advice we were given. Where there was 200 kilometers between villages. Now, most people would have gone 5 kilometers off the ride to find a place, but no, not us. And we were about 50 kilometers from a place. I don't know where it was, from some town anyway, but it was getting dark, and I don't like cycling in the dark. And I told Michael, I'm not going much further. And we found this derelict house, which uh, I went up. Oh, there's a big plank up holding the door closed, took the plank away, and in we go. And Michael took a video of it like it was the hotel you're staying in, like the kids do now, all the way around. There was even a fridge there with an empty can of beer. So we slept on the floor in that house that night and cycled 50 kilometers in the morning for breakfast. Further on,
We should highlight. I just feel like I had to butt in. Sorry to say that this was not a house that was occupied or lived in that someone just was out for the week. This is a
no,
house that had not been occupied for 20 odd
decades.
years.
There was glass all over the floor, which we only realised in the morning because we could have ended up having punctures on all the wheels, but we got away with it. Further on, 50 kilometres short of Galavar, which is the last stamp before you get to the North Cap, We were racing to get to dinner, and I mean racing to get to dinner, because the only cafe that was open anywhere near us was shutting at 7 o'clock. And we made it 2 minutes to 7. It was a trucker stop. It was brilliant, and they fed us royally. And we asked them, is there any place to stay? Well, you could go over to the football pitch. There's a kind of a covered shed at the football pitch, and you could go there. So we headed off towards the football pitch, and while I'm trying to climb down banks to get down to the pitch, Michael discovered the disabled person's toilet in the toilet block, which had heating and lighting and would fit both of our bikes and the two of us. So we slept the night in the disabled toilet 50 kilometres from Gallivare, and had probably the best sleep of the entire trip. It was brilliant.
En suite as well.
Yeah. That's right, yeah.
Brilliant.
That caused a bit of a stir, yeah.
Can you list the countries you went through, just to give everyone a flavour, because it still doesn't sound as significant as I remember it being, just because you're skimming over the detail. Maybe it's because time has passed since you actually did it, and but so just list the countries that you went through.
Yeah, Italy, Switzerland, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Finland, and back into Norway. Is that them all? I think it is. There was 10 of them. Was that 10?
Yeah, that's pretty close. Yeah. And if you missed one, it just shows just how far and long it was. How hard it is to remember all the different routes. But you saw some very differing terrain and different environments from Turin all the way to the north of Norway.
Yeah, I mean, Switzerland's really pretty. It's a beauty. Actually, I was cycling through Lausanne. That was where the first stamp was, and I'm cycling out in that picture that you have up. And on my left-hand side, there's a pub, which is called Grania O'Malley. I'm not joking. Grace O'Malley, or Grania Niwalia, is a famous, Myra would know her, Irish pirate who was around at the time of Elizabeth I. And she was the only person who dared to stand up to Elizabeth I, to the extent that she got invited to London and was granted the rights to pirate all the sea off the west coast of Ireland. Legend has it that I am directly descended from the said Grace O'Malley, although you'd never think it, because I'm such a nice person.
I've never heard that story before, and I completely believe it. It makes so much sense. All of it suddenly kind of comes together, and I finally feel like I understand why you are the incredible person that you are. So we get to the end of the North Coast, 4,000. That was 2 years ago. Last year you tried a little fundraising event here locally. Tell us about that very quickly, and then we'll talk about the future, because the future we'll finish with that is the big thing.
So that was the Pan-Celtic ride. So a bunch of people got together some years ago, and they decided they would ride all the Celtic countries. And last year was the 5th of the 5 years. And I don't know how I heard about it, but I decided I was going to do it. It started in the Isle of Man with a nighttime 100-mile TT. It absolutely chucked it down all night, and the temperature was freezing. One man died of a heart attack, and 2 others crashed their bikes. I was lucky not to. It was the scariest bloody thing I've ever done in my life, and I never want to do it again. And then we caught the boat to the mainland and had to go cycling through the lakes. Most people that are on here will recognise the names Hardknot, Rhinos, and a whole load of the other brutal passes in the lakes. The night I did those climbs, it was 10 o'clock at night, and it was getting dark, and I was still 60 kilometres from the checkpoint. And I spotted this church, and I'd heard of people who slept in graveyards. So I pulled over to go to sleep in the graveyard, and I thought, that's a bit scary. I'll keep going a small bit. And I discovered a pub. And across the road from the pub, there was a shed. And I went over into the shed, and lo and behold, there was a dirty old mattress in the shed. Oh. So I went over to the pub, and I said to the guy, do you know if there's a caravan site? He said, there is, but it's closed. Can I sleep in the shed? Well, there's a white barn owl in there, but if you feel like it, you can. Okay, he says, have you eaten? No, there's a darts match on in here, he said, and we feed the darts players afterwards. Hang on and we'll feed you. So they fed me and watered me with Guinness, and then sent me over to the shed, where I had a great sleep before I headed off in the morning to the checkpoint. So that was another brilliant experience.
Pure luxury.
Yes, pure luxury. Where
Yeah,
people help me, and that's a constant theme of all the stuff I've done. People helping me.
yeah, absolutely. Sometimes just to get rid of you, I think. But yeah, as I said already. But no.
Probably.
But I actually, believe it or not, you didn't put that in your notes, and I'd forgotten about that event.
Yeah.
That was actually pretty considerable effort as well. And when you were getting up into the north of Scotland, it was there was a time limit, wasn't there? And it was pretty hard going. Not only
It
those
was.
first few days, but the whole thing.
There was tough weather. There was really tough climbs. It was the first time. Well, the Wild Atlantic Way I'd cycled on my own, but it was in terrain that I knew. It was a country that I knew. It was people that I knew. This was the first time I really cycled on my own somewhere else, and I found those first 3 or 4 days really, really hard. And then I met a guy from south of England, and he cycled with me for 3 or 4 days, and he was brilliant. He just lifted my spirits. He was great. He got injured. He couldn't continue, but it meant I could do the last few days on my own. By then, I had the problem with my hand. I had serious problems with my bike, and there was some brutal climbs to go, including Bealach na Ba. So some people who are listening to this know what Bealach na Ba is. It's a 9 kilometre cycle up the northwest of Scotland. It's beautiful, but it gets up to over 20% at points, which is quite difficult when you're carrying 7 or 8 kilos on your bike.
Yeah.
But it is stunning views, and when you get up over the top, there's a lovely descent down to a place called Applecross. And I'm heading down this descent, and I suddenly feel a really rubbery back wheel punctured. I was really lucky I wasn't going fast, because I'd have been right over the edge of the cliff. So I managed to get air into it, and I got about down to the bottom. And yet again, people helped me. I met 2 people who were sitting outside the pub who just happened to be cyclists. Out the guy got, repaired the tyre, and that took me all the way to Inverness at the finish. Very nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's try and bring it to a close here by talking about the future and something called 60 for 60 that you are now planning for next year. And this is more barking mad than anything you've ever done before, and that's saying something.
So I'll go back to what I said at the start. My parents have inspired me, and I'm 60 years on this planet, and I want to give a lot back for being 60 years. So I want to do the next bike ride I'm doing, and I'm calling it 60 for 60 because I want to raise £60,000 for Coco, doing my mad cycle next year, 1,000 for each year. And I have a whole plan for all this, which I'll share some other time. But this one is called North Cape Tarifa. So I'm going back to where the last one ended, and I'm going to cycle through 15 countries, I hope, all the way to Tarifa, which is the most southerly point of Europe. When you stand on the beach, apparently you can see Morocco. It will be 7,500 kilometers, so 3,000 more than the one in 2023. It will be 80,000 meters of climbing. There are 3 days that I've currently planned in the Alps, and those 3 days will be 10,000 meters. I don't know how many people that are listening to this will ever have done 3,000 or 4,000 meters, but it's pretty hard for one day. Doing 10 over 3 days, I think, will be quite brutal. There's a climb near the end in the Sierra Nevada in Spain. It's called Pico de Valletta. It's 42 kilometers long, so 12 more than the St. Bernard Pass. It goes to 3,300 meters altitude, so at the point where you're having problems with oxygen. And apparently the views off the top of that thing are like nothing else on this earth. So that is 500 kilometers from the end. So
Quite 500 to go, quite apart from the whole 7,000 kilometers altogether. And you've done you've done a lot of the planning. How many days is this going to take you? You worked this out?
So I if everything goes well, 36 days.
And somehow you managed, I know that reminded me, because somehow you've managed to drag Michael, your friend who you met on the way to the North Cape the first time.
Yes.
He's doing this with you.
He is. We're gonna try and average between 210, 220 kilometers a day. So there'll be a lot of 240 kilometer days.
And you had a little bit of a debate about how you were going to have a little bit of a debate.
I wanted to do it in 35 days. Michael said he wanted to enjoy it. If we were to enjoy it at Michael's watts, we'd be still going in 2027. So I went out to Germany to set him straight. And we did route planning, and he pushed the route planning, and it eventually came out at 36 days. So mostly because of the difficulty in finding places where we could lie down and go to sleep, and finding places to eat, and in Finland in particular. there can be quite big gaps between villages. So we don't have any choice but to do long days in Finland.
Okay,
Yeah.
brilliant. Well, we'll probably have to have you back when that's either happening or happened, because that is I mean, if the North Cape 4000 thing wasn't mind blowing at the time, following you doing that, this is
Yeah.
going to be off the scale. So we'll talk more about that then. But let's finish with another comment you threw in the notes you sent me in advance, where you just said Denise wishes I would just do my bike rides for me.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that different kind of perception of what's going on in terms of the motivations.
So Denise is every bit as generous as I am, but she worries about the stresses that I put on myself. So Denise thinks that the physical stress is enough, and the mental and emotional stress of doing it day after day after day, without constantly having a pressure on my back to raise money for good causes. But what she really probably doesn't understand is it's that keeps me going. So I cannot stop until I've done what I promised I would do. So that's why I do it.
And making the promise is the thing that then gives you the drive to make sure that you will go out and see it through when you're
Absolutely.
complaining again on your channel that your bottom's hurting and other things that are not working out for you.
Yes, exactly right. Yes. Although I have to say, I have had worse in the past. I think, was it Abby or Denise reminded me today that I must have been the only person in history who didn't enjoy my trip to Disneyland in Florida. Because when I went out, I had a pain in a particular part of my anatomy, which doesn't make it easy on the big rides.
On the rides. Yeah.
Yes. So
And that's from too much cycling.
while they were screaming with fear, I was screaming with pain.
I really hope I don't see any of those kind of automatic flash photographs of you doing that, because I won't be able to get that story out of my head when I'm looking at any picture like that. Yeah.
Yes.
David, thank you so much for coming on. I hope have you got any of your, I think you've got most of your Guinness left, because
I have.
You've been doing most of the talking. But cheers. Thank you so much for coming on. It's fantastic. I knew we would have you on at some point, and it's great to have you at a fairly early stage in what we're trying to do here. You're our first non-triathlon person since we began the series, so that's also good news. You're an absolute legend and phenomenon, and I just marvel at your stamina and how you can put yourself through these things, and you're taking it up another level again. So I think one thing I'd probably say is be careful, be safe, have fun. We'll all be following and tracking you and keeping you straight. But all the best and good luck with that. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks very much, Jim. Good talking to you again. Have a good evening.
Talk to you soon. All the best. Bye-bye.